Morning, everybody. Welcome to this session of Business Bitesize. And I suppose I was reflecting on what I wanted to talk about, and it's fair to say that this week I've mostly been talking about profitability and cash. And I think that's an interesting conversation, and I guess I'm becoming a bit blunter about those things now, because it's not up to me to define what success is for you, right? But what I've come to realize is actually cash is probably a key to unlocking some of those things in terms of life goals and what you want to try and achieve. And there's certainly much more to our business than just profitability and cash. We invest lots of money in training people, the next generation of accountants. We do lots of stuff in the community, which you will see if you follow us on social media. But the reality is you do need cash to invest in training. You do need cash often to be able to support. Clearly, we give our time as well. But cash is a really useful thing to have. So actually, ultimately, 90% of it is about cash, and a great way to generate cash is to generate profit. Having said that, the cash and the profit are the outcomes of everything else that you do. So that's the end result. And talking to businesses about their management accounts and their reporting, which does often need to be improved, we're still measuring the outputs, right? That's the ultimate end game. This is the result of all of your hard work, and it's an outcome measure. So it's a bit late in the game in some cases, which is why I thought today we'd talk a little bit about KPIs. So key performance indicators. What are the things in your business that you need to get right and can have a significant impact on performance, which is then reflected in the profit and the cash. So we talk about KPIs. I'm sure you've come across KPIs. We talk about OKRs. There's lots of other things we can talk about, but key performance indicators. What are the key things that are going to make a difference in your business, and how do you work out what they are? So this is a tool. I'm going to show you in a fairly simple format. This is a force field tool. The force field tool is a really good problem-solving tool. Use it in lots of different ways, but actually you can use it as a tool to help you work out what your KPIs are. So I'm going to give you a really simple example to illustrate this. So the force field, and what we want to do is grow the business, right? So the thing we're trying to impact in this exercise is growth. We want to grow the business. So on the left-hand side, we then start to think about what are the things that can have a positive impact on growth. Okay. So we think about what are the things that could move the problem in the right-hand direction. What are the things that would have a positive impact? So we want to grow the business, let's say more sales. Okay, I'm going to keep this quite simple this morning. More sales. So if we generated more sales, we would grow the business. So what could we be doing to generate more sales? So a couple of obvious things. Lead generation. If we generated more leads, we would generate more sales. Conversion. So if we converted more of our leads, we would generate more sales. So there's a couple of really obvious things to do around sales. And what that then starts to indicate is what your potential KPIs could be. So we could measure as a KPI percentage growth in sales, but again, that looks a bit like an outcome measure. Lead generation and conversion rates, those are moving further back up the process, moving further back up the chain. So if we can influence those things, it's going to have an impact on sales. So here's immediately a couple of KPIs. So a KPI might be number of leads generated per month. Conversion rate is typically a percentage, right? What's our percentage conversion rate for our leads? So immediately out of that, we now have a couple more questions. One is, do we know what our current number of leads generated per month is? Do we know what our current conversion rate is? And of course, go back to the famous Peter Drucker, what gets measured gets managed. Okay, so number one question is, do we know what these numbers are? If not, how are we going to measure them? So once we work that part out, we then need to think about how we're going to improve it. So we can set ourselves a target for improvement. So if our current lead generation, let's say, is 10 per month, we want to get that to 50 per month. So now we've got a target, we've got a KPI to do, generate 50 leads per month. What we'll then start to see quite quickly is you need a process to do that. So if you're going to increase it, you need to work out how you're going to do that. And that almost certainly mean if you're not hitting those kind of numbers, you need to improve the process. Many cases when I start working with a business, we just need to put a process in place in the first place. So there is no process. There's no repeat action being taken. There's no consistency about how we do this. So it's a bit random. So there's a couple of things immediately, right? If we start looking at KPIs, that will start to suggest we might need to put processes in place, and it's processes that will ultimately drive performance. So this is a use of a force field in a slightly different way, but it's to try and dig into what we're trying to achieve in the business, identify some areas, start to use that to identify the potential KPIs. So if you're not familiar with the force field, I'll just go down the other side. So these are the things that are stopping the business from growing. So on the left-hand side, we look at the things we can do more of, are currently doing that's helping us to grow. On the right-hand side, we look at the things that are stopping us. So as an example, it might be poor customer service. Okay, so poor customer service is stopping us. So we can start to think about what does that mean. So it might be poor response times. It might be poor lead times. It might be lead times. Okay, so again, these things, when we dig into it, are starting to suggest what additional KPIs might be. So this is a tool that you can use to start measuring, identifying KPIs. Now, the way I would do it is I'd go through this, spend maybe an hour with the team, a bit longer, come up with lots of ideas, and then you need to focus in on what you think is going to be really important now, going to make the difference now. So I think you need 3 KPIs. 3 is my favorite number when it comes to KPIs. 1 KPI will drive 1 behavior. That's not enough. 5, I think, starts to become a bit overwhelming, a bit too diluted. You lose the focus. So I force you in to say, right, find 3. If you think you've got 5, nail it down to 3. What are the 3 that are really important now? And then by measuring those KPIs, you'll start to put some processes in place. You'll improve the performance. You'll improve those numbers. And then you can think about going on to the next. So you don't have to stick with these KPIs forever. Once you've improved them, you've got the process embedded, you've got the habits working, we can then think about going on to some more KPIs to drive further improvements. As a process, though, you might find that there are 3 things that you really do want to measure all the time. And you will lock those in. And again, you can have different KPIs for different teams. You might have slightly different KPIs for people. So it's not about just having 3 KPIs across the whole organization. But if you're looking at a team or an individual, then I would be looking at 3 KPIs. Once you start hitting those targets, you need to think about whether you move on to some additional KPIs. But that hopefully will give you an idea of a tool that you can use to start working out what your KPIs are, the things that you want to measure, the things that you want to improve that will ultimately drive an improvement in profitability and therefore cash. And that will then give you some cash to spend on those things that you want to invest in, whether it's holidays, training people, the local community, whatever else it is. This is a way that you can help drive the generation of cash to allow you to do that. Thank you.